I'm sitting in my childhood bedroom right now, typing this on my phone with the brightness turned all the way down because I'm paranoid. My mom is going to walk past and see the light under my door. It's almost midnight, and in about 4 hours, I'm leaving this house, and I don't think I'm ever coming back. Let me back up because I know that sounds dramatic, and I need you guys to understand that I'm not some teenager running away because my parents said I can't go to a party. I'm 23 years old. I have a degree. I had my own apartment until 6 weeks ago when my parents essentially forced me to move back home, and I was stupid enough to think I could reason with them. So here's what happened. I've been with Gabriel for almost 2 years now. We met through a mutual friend, Bridget, who I've known since high school. Bridget had been telling me about this guy she worked with who she thought I'd really get along with, and I kept brushing her off because I wasn't really looking for anything serious at the time. But she kept bringing him up, and eventually I was like, fine, give him my number, whatever. Gabriel texted me that same night. We talked for like 3 hours straight. Then we talked every day for 2 weeks before we actually met in person. By the time we had our first actual date, I already knew I was in trouble because this man understood me in a way that felt almost scary. I know that sounds like bare minimum, but trust me, when I say that in my family, that kind of attention doesn't exist. My parents have never once asked me what I actually want. Everything has always been about what they want for me, what looks good, what makes sense to them, what fits into their vision of what their daughter should be. Gabriel was the first person who ever made me feel like my opinions mattered, like I was allowed to want things for myself. So anyway, we've been together almost 2 years, and for most of that time, my parents didn't know he existed. I know, that sounds bad. But you have to understand what my parents are like. They have opinions about everything. Every single choice I've ever made has been picked apart and criticized and analyzed until I just stopped telling them things. It was easier to just let them believe whatever they wanted to believe about my life while I lived a completely different one. I told them I was living alone. I told them I was focused on building my career. I told them I wasn't interested in dating because I wanted to be independent first. And they ate it up because that's what they wanted to hear. Meanwhile, Gabriel and I were planning our future together, talking about eventually moving somewhere with lower cost of living, maybe getting a dog, building an actual life. The problem is that my mom is nosy, like pathologically nosy. She has to know everything about everyone at all times. And about 3 months ago, she decided to surprise visit my apartment on a random day afternoon. I wasn't home, Gabriel was. He answered the door thinking it was the maintenance guy, and instead it was my mother standing there with a casserole dish and a look on her face like she'd just caught him robbing the place. Gabriel called me immediately, obviously panicking, and I remember just standing in the parking lot outside feeling like the ground was opening up beneath me. Not because I was ashamed of Gabriel, never that, but because I knew what was coming. I knew my parents were going to make this into something huge and ugly and exhausting. And I was right. My mom didn't even wait for me to get home. By the time I walked through the door, she had already called my dad, and they were both sitting in my living room like they owned the place. Gabriel had left because honestly, what else was he supposed to do? And my parents were sitting there looking at me like I had personally betrayed them in the worst possible way. My mom started crying. That manipulative crying she does when she wants me to feel guilty for existing. She kept saying things like, "How could you lie to us and we've given you everything and this is how you repay us?" My dad just sat there with this cold expression, not saying anything, which is somehow worse than when he yells. I tried to explain. I told them Gabriel is a good person. I told them we've been together almost 2 years and he treats me well and we're happy. I told them I was sorry for not telling them sooner, but I knew they would react exactly like this, which is why I didn't say anything in the first place. That made it worse. Apparently, me having valid reasons for keeping secrets is more offensive than the secrets themselves. My dad finally spoke, and he said something I'll never forget. He said that I was clearly incapable of making decisions for myself since I had been lying to them for so long, and that from now on they would need to be more involved in my life to make sure I didn't make any more mistakes. I actually laughed in his face because what was he going to do? I'm a grown adult with my own apartment and my own income and my own life. I don't need their permission for anything. That's when they told me they were cutting me off. Now look, I know some people are going to read this and think, so what? You're 23? You shouldn't be relying on your parents anyway. And you're right. But here's the thing. My parents had been paying for my car insurance. They had been helping with my phone bill. They had my name on their cell phone plan and their car insurance because they said it was cheaper that way. And I believed them because why would I think my own parents were setting up a trap? My dad told me that if I wanted to continue making decisions without their input, then I could figure out all of those things on my own. And then he said something that made my blood go cold in a way I can't even describe. He said that they had been helping me with my rent too, which I knew. But then he said that my landlord was a friend of his from church and that he had already spoken to him about my situation. I didn't understand what he meant at first. My mom actually looked uncomfortable, which should have been my first clue that whatever was coming was bad even by their standards. Turns out my dad had told my landlord that I was having mental health issues and that they were concerned about my ability to live alone safely. He suggested that maybe it would be best if my lease wasn't renewed when it came up in 2 months. My landlord agreed. So not only were my parents cutting me off financially, they had also basically made sure I would lose my apartment. And the whole time they sat there looking at me like they were the victims. Like I had forced them to do this by having the audacity to have a boyfriend they didn't know about. I lost it. I'm not gonna lie. I said things I probably shouldn't have said, but honestly, at that point, I didn't care. I asked them what kind of parents sabotage their own child's life because she dared to have a relationship. I asked them if they understood how insane they sounded. I asked them what they thought was going to happen, that I would just break up with Gabriel and come crawling back to them and pretend none of this happened. My mom stopped crying real quick when I started yelling. She got this hard look on her face and she told me that this was exactly what they were talking about, that I was clearly not in the right state of mind if I was choosing some random man over my own family. She said they were doing this for me, that someday I would understand and thank them. My dad backed her up. He always does. He said that Gabriel was obviously a bad influence if I was willing to lie to my own parents for 2 years to be with him. He said that they didn't know anything about him or his family, and that for all they knew, he could be dangerous. I told them Gabriel's not dangerous. You're dangerous. You're the ones manipulating and threatening me. And my dad just looked at me with this expression like he pitied me and said that I was proving their point. That was 3 months ago. I tried to fix it. I really did. I invited them to meet Gabriel properly, thinking maybe if they just got to know him, they would see what I see. Gabriel was nervous, but he agreed because he knew how important it was to me. We planned a dinner at a nice restaurant, somewhere neutral, somewhere public. My parents refused to come. My mom said she wasn't going to sit across from some stranger who had been sneaking around with her daughter for 2 years. She said that if I wanted to prove Gabriel was a good person, then I needed to break up with him first, and if we were really meant to be together, then we could try again in a year or two after I had demonstrated that I could make good decisions. A year or two. I told her that was insane. I told her that relationships don't work that way, and that I wasn't going to put my life on hold because they couldn't handle not being in control. She hung up on me. My dad called me the next day, and his approach was different, but somehow worse. He didn't yell or threaten. He just talked to me in this calm voice like he was explaining something to a child. He said that they weren't trying to control me. They just wanted to protect me. He said that I was young and didn't understand how the world worked yet, and that Gabriel was clearly taking advantage of my naivety. I asked him how. How exactly is Gabriel taking advantage of me? We split everything. We make decisions together. He supports my goals and I support his. What part of that sounds like taking advantage? My dad said that the fact I couldn't see it proved how deep the manipulation went. There's no winning with these people. Everything I say gets twisted into more evidence that I'm wrong and they're right. Every attempt I make to reason with them just gives them more ammunition. So when my lease wasn't renewed and I couldn't find another apartment in my price range fast enough, I made a stupid decision. I moved back home. I told myself it would just be temporary. A few weeks to save up, find a new place, get back on my feet. Gabriel wanted me to move in with him, but we had only been together 2 years at that point, and it felt too fast and too much like running away. I thought I could handle my parents for a few weeks. God, I was stupid. The first week wasn't terrible. They were actually nice to me, almost suspiciously nice. My mom cooked all my favorite foods. My dad didn't mention Gabriel once. I started to think maybe they had realized how badly they had overreacted and were trying to make amends without having to actually apologize. Then week 2 hit. My mom started asking questions about my schedule. Where was I going? When would I be back? Who was I meeting? At first I answered because it seemed harmless. I was going to meet Bridget for lunch. I would be back by 3. Just stuff like that. But then she started checking. She would text me while I was out asking for pictures to prove where I was. She would call Bridget's mom to confirm we were actually together. She would drive by places I said I would be just to make sure my car was there. When I confronted her about it, she said she was just worried about me, that after everything that happened, she needed to know I was being honest with her, that if I had nothing to hide, then I shouldn't mind her checking. I told her that's not how trust works. Trust means believing someone without needing proof. She said I had lost the right to be trusted when I lied to them for 2 years. By week 3, they had taken my car keys. My dad said it was because the car was technically in their name still and they didn't feel comfortable with me driving it until we had worked things out. He said I could have them back when I proved I was serious about repairing our relationship. I asked him what that meant, repairing our relationship. He said I knew what it meant. He meant breaking up with Gabriel. I called Gabriel that night from the bathroom with the shower running so my parents wouldn't hear. He was furious. Not at me, at them. He wanted to come get me right then. He said this was abuse, what they were doing. He said I needed to get out of there. I told him to wait. I told him I had a plan. I just needed a little more time. See, here's the thing my parents don't know. I've been saving money. Not in the account they know about, the one connected to their banking, because of course they insisted on that when I was in college and I never got around to changing it. I have a separate account at a different bank that they have no access to. I've been putting money in there for years ever since I realized that my parents' help always came with strings attached. I don't have a lot, but I have enough. What I don't have is my car. And I don't have my important documents, because my parents have always kept those in their safe. And when I asked for them last week, my mom said she would give them to me when I was ready to move out properly, meaning when I was moving somewhere they approved of. The ultimatum came 2 days ago. My dad sat me down in the living room while my mom stood behind him with her arms crossed like they were staging some kind of intervention. He told me that they had given me 6 weeks to come to my senses and I hadn't. He said they were disappointed but not surprised. He said that clearly I needed more structure in my life. And then he told me that starting next week, I wouldn't be allowed to leave the house without one of them accompanying me, that my phone would be monitored. That if I tried to contact Gabriel, they would know and there would be consequences. I asked what consequences. My dad said they would do whatever it took to protect me from myself, even if that meant turning my life into a prison. Even if that meant locking me away until I understood that they were only doing this because they loved me. He said those exact words. Turn my life into a prison. Lock me away. Like I'm property. Like I'm something that belongs to them instead of a whole human person with my own thoughts and feelings and rights. I just sat there and nodded and said I understood, because I knew that arguing would only make things worse. They thought they had won. They thought they had finally broken me. But here's what they don't know. Gabriel and I have been planning this for weeks. Ever since they took my car keys, ever since I realized that my parents weren't going to stop until they had complete control over every aspect of my life. Tonight at 4 a.m. when they're both asleep, I'm leaving. Gabriel is going to park 2 streets over and I'm going to walk to him with whatever I can carry. We're going to drive to his sister Emmeline's place 3 hours away where I can stay until I figure out my next steps. I don't have my documents. I don't have my car. I don't have most of my belonging, but I have Gabriel and I have Emmeline, who I've never even met in person, but who agreed to help the second Gabriel explained what was happening. And I have my secret savings and my determination to never let my parents control me like this again. I'm scared. I'm not going to pretend I'm not. These are my parents. I've spent my whole life trying to make them proud, trying to live up to their expectations, trying to be the daughter they wanted, and now I'm about to destroy any relationship we might have had. But I keep thinking about what my dad said. Turn my life into a prison. Like that's a normal thing for a parent to say to their child. Like that's love. That's not love. I don't know what it is, but it's not love. I have about 4 hours until I need to go. I'm posting this now because I need someone outside of this situation to tell me I'm not crazy, that what my parents are doing is wrong, that I'm making the right choice by leaving, and also because I want there to be a record of what happened in case something goes wrong tonight. I'll update when I can. Wish me luck. Update. First, let me say that I'm still at Emmeline's and I'm still safe. Gabriel has been going back and forth between here and his apartment because he has responsibilities he can't just abandon, but he's been here every night and honestly, I don't know what I would do without him and his sister right now. Emmeline is genuinely one of the kindest people I've ever met, and the fact that she opened her home to someone she barely knows, just because her brother asked her to says everything about what kind of person she is. But okay, let me get into what happened. So after my last update, I knew I needed to figure out the document situation. I looked into how to get replacements, and it's possible, but it's a whole process, and it takes time, and honestly, I was hoping I wouldn't have to go that route because there was also other stuff at their house I wanted. Photos from when I was a kid, some jewelry my grandmother gave me before she got sick, things that can't be replaced. Gabriel suggested I could ask a lawyer about my options, but I didn't want to go that far yet. Despite everything, these are still my parents. I know that sounds stupid after everything I told you in my last posts, but there's a difference between escaping a bad situation and declaring all-out war on your own family. I wanted to at least try to handle this like adults before bringing lawyers into it. So I decided to call my mom. Gabriel was against it. Emmeline was against it. Even Bridget, when I texted her about it, was like, "Are you sure that's a good idea?" But I felt like I needed to at least attempt to have a real conversation before giving up entirely. Maybe if I approached it calmly and explained my position clearly, she would listen. Maybe now that some time had passed and the initial panic was over, we could actually talk like reasonable people. I know, but I had to try. I called her on a Wednesday afternoon. I remember because Emmeline had just left to run errands and Gabriel was at work, so I was alone in the apartment, which in hindsight was probably not the smartest choice, but I didn't want an audience for this conversation. My mom picked up on the second ring like she had been waiting by the phone, which she probably had been. The first thing she said was, "Thank God you're alive." And for like half a second I thought maybe this would actually go okay because she sounded genuinely relieved. But then she immediately followed it up with asking me where I was and when I was coming home, and I realized that nothing had changed. She wasn't relieved because she cared about my well-being. She was relieved because now she could try to get me back under her control. I told her I wasn't coming home. I told her I was safe, and I was with people who cared about me, and I was figuring out my next steps. I said I was calling because I wanted to discuss getting my things back, specifically my documents and some personal items that belonged to me. She got quiet. That dangerous quiet she does when she's trying to figure out the best angle to come at you from. Then she said that of course I could have my things back. All I had to do was come get them. I told her I wasn't comfortable coming to the house alone. I asked if she could meet me somewhere public to hand them over, or if she could mail them to me. She laughed. She said she wasn't going to mail important documents. What if they got lost? And she wasn't going to meet me somewhere like we were doing some kind of drug deal. If I wanted my things, I could come home and get them like a normal person. I said I would come, but I was bringing Gabriel with me. And that's when things got ugly. She started going off about how Gabriel was the whole reason we were in this situation. How if I had just been honest from the beginning, none of this would have happened. How I had chosen a stranger over my own family, and now I was making demands like I was the victim when really I was the one who had lied and deceived and broken their trust. I let her talk. I actually just sat there and listened to the whole thing without interrupting because I wanted to hear it all. Every accusation, every justification. I wanted to know exactly how she had framed this in her head. When she finally stopped, I told her that I heard her. I said I understood that she felt hurt and betrayed. I acknowledged that keeping Gabriel a secret for 2 years wasn't the right choice and that I was sorry for lying, but I also said that her response to finding out was not proportionate. That threatening to turn my life into a prison was not something a loving parent says to their child. That taking my car keys and monitoring my movements and trying to isolate me from everyone I cared about was not protection, it was control. Then she said something that caught me completely off guard. She said that I sounded just like her mother. I asked her what she meant by that. She had mentioned my grandmother before, the night I left, something about how she tried to leave too. I had been thinking about that comment ever since, and I wanted to know what she was talking about. My mom got weird. Her voice changed, and she told me that wasn't something we needed to discuss right now, and that I was deflecting from the real issue, which was my relationship with Gabriel, and my refusal to come home, but I pushed. I told her I wasn't deflecting, I genuinely wanted to understand. What did she mean when she said my grandmother tried to leave? Leave what? Leave who? And then my mom said something that honestly changed my entire understanding of my family. She said that her mother, my grandmother, had tried to leave her father when my mom was 12 years old. She had packed a bag and taken my mom and her brother, and tried to go to her sister's house 2 states away. But my grandfather found them. He brought them back. And my grandmother never tried to leave again. I asked why she tried to leave. What was so bad that she felt like she had to run away with her kids in the middle of the night? My mom said it didn't matter why. What mattered was that her mother's little escape attempt had consequences, that things were worse after she came back, that the whole thing had been selfish and unnecessary and had only made life harder for everyone, especially the children. I was literally sitting there with my mouth open trying to process this. My grandmother, who I remember as this sweet, quiet woman who always smelled like lavender and made the best cookies, she had tried to escape her marriage when my mom was a kid. And apparently my grandfather, who died when I was 5 and who I have almost no memories of, was someone worth escaping from. I asked my mom directly, was he abusive? Was your father abusive to your mother? She said that was a strong word, and that every marriage has problems, and that her father was a good provider who kept a roof over their heads, and that her mother had been too emotional, too sensitive, always making mountains out of molehills. Sound familiar? Yeah, it sounded very familiar. I told her that I was starting to understand where her and Dad's parenting style came from. She asked what that was supposed to mean, and I said that it seemed like she had learned from her father that the way to handle family members who want independence is to control them, isolate them, and make it impossible for them to leave. She hung up on me. I sat there for probably 20 minutes just staring at my phone. I had always known my parents were controlling, but I never really understood why until that moment. My mom had grown up watching her father trap her mother in a marriage she wanted to escape. And instead of recognizing how messed up that was, she had internalized it. She thought that was how you keep a family together. Through control. Through isolation. Through making sure no one can leave. I called Gabriel and told him everything. He was quiet for a long time after I finished, and then he said that this explained a lot, but it didn't excuse anything. That understanding why someone hurts you doesn't mean you have to let them keep doing it. I love him so much. But here's where things got complicated. The next day, my Aunt Janet showed up at Emmeline's apartment. I don't know how she found out where I was. I mean, I have my suspicions. She's friends with Bridget's mom on social media, and Bridget's mom knew I was staying with Gabriel's sister, so she probably pieced it together from there. But the point is, she showed up unannounced and started banging on the door demanding to talk to me. Emmeline answered because I was in the shower and didn't hear the door. By the time I came out, Janet was already inside, sitting on the couch like she owned the place, and Emmeline was standing there looking extremely uncomfortable. Janet is my mom's younger sister, and honestly, she's always been the flying monkey of the family. Whatever my parents want, Janet makes sure happens. She's the one who guilt trips everyone into showing up to family events. She's the one who spreads information and makes sure no one keeps secrets. She's the one who called me selfish in those texts when I first left. She looked at me standing there in a towel with my hair dripping, and the first thing she said was that I needed to stop this nonsense and come home before I ruined my life permanently. I told her I needed to get dressed, and she could wait, or she could leave, but either way, I wasn't having this conversation in a towel. I went to the bedroom and took my time getting ready, because honestly, I needed a minute to figure out how I wanted to handle this. When I came back out, she had made herself coffee in Emmeline's kitchen without asking, which is so Janet. I sat down across from her and asked her what exactly she wanted. She launched into this whole thing about how my parents were devastated, how my mom hadn't stopped crying since I left, how my dad was barely sleeping, how they couldn't understand where they went wrong with me. She said that all they had ever done was try to give me a good life, and this is how I repaid them. I let her finish, and then I asked her if my mom had told her about my grandmother, about how she tried to leave my grandfather. Janet's face did this thing where she tried to keep her expression neutral, but I could see the surprise. She said she didn't know what I was talking about. I told her that my mom had told me yesterday about how grandma tried to leave when mom was 12, how grandpa brought them back, how things got worse after that. Janet said that was ancient history and it had nothing to do with what was happening now. She said I was grasping at straws trying to justify my own bad behavior by digging up old family drama. Janet is a terrible liar. She always has been. And the way she was avoiding eye contact told me that she knew exactly what I was talking about, and there was more to the story than what my mom had told me. I asked her directly what happened to grandma after she tried to leave. Why did she become the person I remember, so quiet and passive and afraid of everything? What did grandpa do to her? Janet told me I needed to stop asking questions about things that didn't concern me, that the past was the past and bringing it up wasn't going to help anyone. She said I should be focused on my own situation, on mending things with my parents, on making better choices going forward. I told her that I was focused on my situation and that my situation was directly connected to whatever happened in that house when my mom was growing up, because my mom was doing to me exactly what her father did to her mother. Janet got up like she was going to leave. Then she turned around and said something that I'm still thinking about days later. She said that my grandmother made a choice after she came back. She chose to stay quiet and go along with things because she understood that fighting only made everything worse. She said that my grandmother was smart enough to know when she was beaten. Then she said that she hoped I was smart enough to figure that out too. And she left. I stood there feeling like I had been punched. She wasn't telling me to come home because my parents loved me. She was telling me to submit, to stop fighting, to accept that I couldn't win and just let them have their way like my grandmother had done. That's what my family expects from women: submission, compliance, shutting up and going along with whatever the men in charge decide. My grandmother learned that lesson and it turned her into a ghost of a person. My mom learned it too, and now she's trying to teach it to me, but I'm not going to learn it. I refuse. I called my dad that night. Not my mom, my dad. Because I realized that in all of this I had been treating him like a secondary character, like he was just backing up my mom's crazy, but actually he was the one who said the thing about turning my life into a prison. He was the one who got his friend to not renew my lease. He was the engine of this whole thing. He answered and his voice was calm, like nothing was wrong. He asked how I was doing, like we were just having a normal chat, like he hadn't threatened to lock me up less than 2 weeks ago. I told him I wanted my documents. I told him that legally those documents belonged to me and he had no right to keep them. I said I would bring someone with me to pick them up and we could arrange a time that worked for everyone. He sighed. That disappointed dad sigh he does when he thinks I'm being difficult. He said he had really hoped I would have come to my senses by now, that he and my mom missed me, that the house felt empty without me. I said I miss them too, and I meant it. Despite everything I do miss my parents. I miss the versions of them that I thought existed before all of this happened, but I told him that missing them didn't mean I was going to let them control my life, that I was an adult and I got to make my own choices even if they disagreed with those choices. He said that was where I was wrong. He said that as long as I was making bad choices, it was his job as my father to guide me back to the right path. He said that Gabriel was a bad choice, that running away was a bad choice, that turning my back on my family was the worst choice I could possibly make. I asked him why Gabriel was a bad choice. What specifically was wrong with him? He had never even met Gabriel. How could he know he was bad for me? My dad said it didn't matter who Gabriel was specifically. What mattered was that I had been dishonest about him, that I had built a relationship on lies and secrets, that any man who would encourage a woman to deceive her family was not someone with good intentions. I pointed out that I was the one who wanted to keep Gabriel's secret, not Gabriel. That Gabriel had actually wanted to meet them from the beginning, but I was the one who said no because I knew how they would react. I was protecting Gabriel from them, not the other way around. My dad got quiet. Then he said that was even worse, that I had been so brainwashed by this man that I was already choosing him over my own family before they even had a chance to object. I told him that wasn't brainwashing. That was self-preservation. I said I knew that they would try to sabotage any relationship I had because they couldn't stand the idea of me having a life outside of their control. I said the fact that they were doing exactly what I predicted proved that I was right to keep Gabriel a secret. He said I was twisting things, that I was making him and my mom out to be villains when all they wanted was to protect me. He asked me couldn't I see that they were doing this because they loved me. I asked him if Grandpa loved Grandma when he dragged her back after she tried to leave. I asked if that was love too. Dead silence. I could hear him breathing, but he didn't say anything for a long time. Then he said in this really low voice that I didn't know what I was talking about, that his mother had been confused and overwhelmed and that his father had done what needed to be done to keep the family together. That things were different back then and I couldn't judge situations I didn't understand. I told him that I understood perfectly. I said that I understood that the men in our family thought they had the right to control the women, to decide where they could go and who they could see and whether they were allowed to leave. I said I understood that this pattern had been going on for at least 2 generations, and probably longer. But I told him that the pattern ended with me. He said we would see about that. And then he hung up on me. I've been replaying both conversations over and over in my head ever since. My mom defending her father, my dad defending his. Both of them acting like what happened to my grandmother was normal, acceptable, just the way things were done. And I keep thinking about Janet saying my grandmother was smart enough to know when she was beaten. Is that what happened? Did my grandmother spend the rest of her life as this quiet, compliant person because she had been beaten into submission? Not physically necessarily, although who knows? I'm not my grandmother. I'm not going to spend the rest of my life being quiet just to keep the peace. I refuse. I'm still figuring out what to do about my documents. I might have to just accept that I need to get replacements through official channels. But there's a part of me that isn't ready to give up on getting my grandmother's jewelry. Those pieces are all I have left of the real her, the woman she was before she was beaten down into silence. I want them. I need them. Gabriel suggested we could go to the house when we know my parents aren't home. Like just show up and grab my stuff while they're at work or something. It feels wrong sneaking into my own parents' house, but also everything about this situation is wrong, so maybe that doesn't matter anymore. I'm going to think about it. I'll update you guys when I figure out what I'm doing next. But I want to say something before I go. To all of you who have been following this story, I know some of you might think I'm overreacting or being dramatic. My parents haven't actually hurt me physically. They haven't done anything illegal technically. From the outside, this might just look like a girl who's mad at her parents for not liking her boyfriend. But I need you to understand. The control, the monitoring, the threats, the way they've turned my entire extended family against me. The way they talk about keeping me prisoner like that's a reasonable thing for parents to want. This isn't normal. This isn't what loving families do. And finding out that this goes back to my grandmother, that this is a pattern in my family, it makes me realize that I'm not just fighting for myself. I'm fighting for every woman in this family who was told to shut up and submit. I'm fighting for my grandmother, who tried to leave and couldn't. I'm fighting for the daughter I might have someday, who deserves to grow up knowing that she has the right to make her own choices. I'm not giving up. More updates soon. Final update. I've been trying to write this for days, and I keep deleting everything because I don't even know how to explain what happened. But you've all been here through this whole mess, so here goes. After my last update, I couldn't let go of the jewelry thing. I know it sounds stupid, but those pieces were all I had left of my grandma from before she became that ghost of a person I grew up with. And my parents were just holding them hostage like everything else. Gabriel and I drove over on Saturday. 2 hours of me shaking and sweating and him squeezing my hand at every red light. When we pulled onto my street, I almost told him to turn around, but I knew if I did that, I'd never come back. My dad answered the door, looked at me, looked at Gabriel, and his face just shut down completely. He stood there blocking the doorway like we were trying to sell him something. I told him I came for my things, documents, grandma's jewelry, some photos, said I wasn't there to fight. My mom appeared behind him. She stared at Gabriel for a long time and then asked if I was really gonna throw away my family for some guy. I was so tired. I told her I wasn't throwing away anything. They gave me the ultimatum. They threatened to lock me up. I just left. She started crying. The usual performance. Went into her whole speech about 23 years of sacrifice, and this is what she gets. But I wasn't buying it anymore. I told her I knew about Grandma. I knew something happened when she tried to leave Grandpa. My mom stopped crying immediately, got this hard look, and said I didn't know what I was talking about. I pushed. I said Janet told me Grandma was smart enough to know when she was beaten. I asked what that meant. What did Grandpa do to her? My mom told me to drop it. My dad stepped forward and said this wasn't the time or place, but I was done being redirected. I said I wasn't leaving until someone told me the truth about what happened in this family. And then my mom just broke. She told me to come inside. Gabriel started to follow, but my dad put his hand up and said this was family business. Gabriel looked at me and I nodded because honestly, I needed to hear this. And I didn't know if my mom would talk with him there. We sat in the living room, my mom on one end of the couch, me on the other. My dad stood by the window with his arms crossed. My mom said that when she was 12, her mother tried to leave her father, packed bags in the middle of the night, woke up my mom and her brother and put them in the car. They drove for 6 hours to my mom's aunt's house in another state. I knew that part already, but then she told me the rest. They stayed with the aunt for 3 weeks. My grandma got a job at a diner, started looking for an apartment. My mom said those 3 weeks were the happiest she'd ever seen her mother. She was laughing again, making plans, talking about how things were going to be different now. Then my grandpa showed up. He didn't yell, didn't threaten. He just stood on the aunt's porch and cried, told my grandma he couldn't live without her, that he'd changed, that the kids needed their father. He brought flowers and a card that my mom's little brother had made that said, "Please come home, Mommy." My grandma said no at first, told him she wasn't coming back, but he kept showing up, every day for a week. The aunt started saying maybe she should give him another chance. The kids missed their rooms, their friends, their school. My mom's brother kept asking when they could go home, so my grandma went back. My mom got quiet for a minute, then she said the first 2 months were fine. Grandpa was on his best behavior, brought home presents, took them on a trip. Everyone thought things were better. Then my grandma found out she was pregnant, and everything changed. My mom said her father told her mother that if she ever tried to leave again, he would make sure she never saw any of her children, that he had friends, lawyers, people who would testify that she was unfit, that she'd abandoned her family once and no judge would give her custody after that. My grandma was trapped, pregnant, no money of her own, no job anymore because she'd quit the diner job to come back. And now she had proof that leaving meant losing her kids. She had the baby. My uncle Nicholas, who I've met maybe 5 times in my life because he moved to Europe the second he turned 18 and barely talks to anyone in the family. My mom said her mother never tried to leave again, but she also never came back. Not really. She just went somewhere else inside her head. Stopped talking unless someone asked her a direct question. She said watching her mother disappear like that was worse than if she had actually left. I was sitting there with tears running down my face. I asked my mom how she could know all of this and still think what she was doing to me was okay. How she could watch her mother get destroyed and then turn around and try to do the same thing to her own daughter. My mom looked at me and said she wasn't doing the same thing. She said she was trying to protect me, that her mother had made bad choices and suffered for them and she didn't want me to make the same mistakes. I told her I wasn't making a mistake. Gabriel isn't Grandpa. Running away from people who threaten to imprison you isn't the same as running away from a marriage. She said, how do you know? How do you know Gabriel won't change once he has you? How do you know you're not walking into the same trap your grandmother walked into? And I realized something. My mom wasn't trying to be cruel. She was terrified. She watched her mother get trapped and destroyed, and she was so scared of it happening to me that she became the trap herself. She was so focused on keeping me from making her mother's mistakes that she turned into her father. I told her that. I said, Mom, you became the thing you were afraid of. You're not protecting me. You're doing exactly what Grandpa did. But then my dad stepped in and said, that was enough. He said I was twisting things and being manipulative and that I needed to take my stuff and go. My mom went to the safe, got my documents. Then she brought out Grandma's jewelry box. She held it for a second and said her mother had wanted me to have these specifically. That was 2 weeks ago. I wear Grandma's jewelry every day now. A gold bracelet and pearl earrings. Every time I catch my reflection, I think about her trapped in that house with a man who threatened to take her children if she ever tried to be free again. My parents haven't reached out. The family has gone silent. It hurts, but it's also kind of peaceful after everything. Gabriel and I found an apartment 4 hours away. We move next week. I don't know if I'll ever talk to my parents again. Some days that feels like grief. Other days it feels like survival. Thanks for being here through all of this.